Welcome to Symbolic Expression special lecture on inclusive series. Today we are going to talk on some techniques which are going to make the classroom more engaging for the students. We have already discussed three aspects in the first half of the lecture. Now we are going to start with the fourth technique, that is think, pair, share and Socratic circles. It is also aligned with the new education policy 2020. It encourages the inquiry-based learning and the collaborative discussion to build the communication, listening and the reasoning skills. For example, in an economics class, the teacher asks, should India shift completely to a digital currency? The student write their views, pair up to compare the opinions and then join a larger classroom discussion citing the examples and the research. There are some applications like English students, they explore the theme in a novel by questioning one another in a Socratic circle. Science students, they predict the outcome of an experiment, they test it and then reflect through peer discussion. It is also like multi-grade applications. The first is your primary. What if the trees could talk? Think, pair and draw. The secondary is the space exploration worth the cost? Again, think, pair and debate. For example, it encourages the active participation and the critical thinking. These strategies involve asking the open-ended questions, promoting the students to analyze, evaluate and synthesize the information instead of just recalling the facts. In a geography class, the teacher asks, how would the climate change impact the agriculture in India? The students think silently, discuss in pairs and then share the insights in a Socratic circles. It also gives the introverted students a safe way to participate. The students who are shy and anxious about speaking in the front of the whole class gets a chance to first talk in pairs, building the confidence. For example, a reserved student in an English class first shares the thought about a poem with a partner before contributing to a larger discussion. It also promotes the peer learning and the listening skills. The students listen to the diverse viewpoints, question the assumptions and refine their own thinking through the respectful dialogue. For example, in a history lesson, student in a Socratic circle discusses whether Gandhi's non-violence was more effective than other independence movement globally, learning them from each other perspectives. Can be used in any subject of any class size. These techniques are vestigial, versatile and can be adapted to suit any kind of topic, from science to literature, in large or in the small classrooms. For example, in a science class, students use think, pair, share to hypothesize the causes of water pollution before conducting a lab experiment. There are certain limitations of think, pair, share and Socratic circles. The first is, it can become chaotic in the large classrooms if not well managed. Without a very clear structure or the time limits, discussions may become noisy, unfocused and off the topic. In a 60 student classroom, unmoderated peer sharing can turn into a side conversation, reducing the learning quality. It also requires a strong facilitation skills. The teachers must be skilled in posing the right kind of questions, managing the dialogue, and ensuring the equal participation of all. For example, a poorly facilitated Socratic circle may be dominated by a few vocal students while others remain very passive. Not suitable for content heavy, fast paced lessons. These techniques take time and may not be ideal when the syllabus is vast, dense and exam focused. Now, in a class covering a chemical equation for an upcoming test, spending time on extended discussions may leave the syllabus incomplete. There are time constraints also, which may limit the effectiveness of this particular technique. The next is your use of technology and the digital tools. Technology integration enhances the engagement and facilitates the access to diverse resources. It includes using the smart boards, interactive applications, simulations, virtual labs and the government platforms like Diksha and Swayam. It is also aligned with the new education policy 2020, which encourages the digital transformation of education through blended learning, accessible content and teacher capacity building in EdTech platforms. For example, in a biology class, the students use an augmented reality application to explore the 3D models of the human circulatory system. They can visualize and interact with each part separately, making the concept more understandable and memorable. There are few applications of use of technology and the digital tools. The first is students create podcast summarizing the lessons. They use the Google Earth in geography to study the climatic zones. They conduct the quizzes through Kahoot, which is a gaming platform, an educational gaming platform, or Google Forms for the instant feedback. This particular technique of using the technology and the digital tools is also having multi-grade applications, like from grade 1 to 5, interactive phonics games for reading fluency. For grade 6 to 8, use of simulations and the virtual labs for the science experiments. For grade 9th to 12th, AI based applications for doubt resolution and the test practices. For example, there are some advantages what we will be discussing now of technology and digital tools. The first is it increases the student engagement through multimedia and learning. Audio visual content, simulations, gamified lessons will make the abstract concepts more interactive and easier to grasp. For example, a science teacher uses a 3D animations to demonstrate the cell division, making the topic exciting and easier to understand. It also enables a personalized and differentiated instruction. Digital tools can adapt to each learner pace and the level, supporting the students with varied learning needs. An application like Khan Academy recommends the maths exercises based on the student previous answers, offering a remedial or advanced content accordingly. It also facilitates the instant feedback and the formative assessment, that is the online quizzes, the learning platforms. It provides the immediate results, helping both the students and the teachers identify the strength and the areas for improvement. Like for example, using the Google Forms or Kahoot, a teacher conducts a quick quiz after a lesson, adjusting the next class based on performance data. It also prepares the student for a digitally driven world. Familiarity with the digital tools will help the students develop the 21st century skills like information literacy, collaboration, and virtual communication. The students create the presentations using the Canva or collaborate in a shared Google Docs, learning the essential workplace tools early on. There are certain limitations of this tool. Digital divide can exclude the underprivileged students. Not all the students have the access to the reliable internet, smartphones, laptops, etc., especially in the rural or the low income setting areas. For example, during the COVID-19 lockdown, many students from the government schools in the remote areas could not attend the online classes. There is a risk of screen fatigue also, distraction and the cyberbullying. Prolonged screen time can lead to some health issues, loss of attention and exposure to the harmful online behavior. For example, the students may get distracted by the social media while attending the online classes or face some harassment in that chat forum. Now, the teachers may need a significant training to use the tools effectively. Many educators may lack the digital literacy or the confidence to fully leverage the educational technology. Like a teacher who is unfamiliar with the digital whiteboards, they may struggle to manage a hybrid classroom, reducing the lesson effectiveness. Reliance on tech may reduce face-to-face interaction. Overdependence on the screens can impact the classroom dynamics, the peer bonding, the interpersonal skill development. For example, the students completing the digital worksheets in silence, they miss the opportunity for the live group discussions and the verbal feedback. There are some advanced implementation strategies also. The first is blend online and offline content. Use the free government resources like e-Pathshala and Diksha. Assign the digital storytelling and the video making projects. Now, the last technique what we are going to discuss in this lecture is personalized and the competency based learning. Now, what is this? This technique tailors the instruction based on each student pace and the skill level. It focuses on achieving a mastery of learning outcomes rather than finishing a standard syllabus, allowing for a differentiated instruction. This particular technique, which is highly engaging for the students, is also aligned with the new education policy 2020. It promotes the competency based education where the progress is based on mastering the learning objectives and not age or grade level alone. Let us take an example. In a mathematics class, students are grouped based on their grasp of the concepts. Some work on the basic numeracy with the teacher support, others tackle the advanced problem independently. Each student has a customized worksheet or online module based on their level. This era of 21st century challenges ready classroom is all about personalization. There are some further applications what we are going to discuss with few illustrations. Like in English, student read the text which is suited to their reading levels, summarize them in the creative ways like the storyboards, poems or videos. They use the adaptive learning platforms that adjust the content based on the student responses. It is also based on multi-grade applications, that is the foundation years, the middle graders and the secondary levels. When you talk about the foundational years, there are some tailored reading programs with the visual cues. In the middle grade, there is an adaptive maths software that adjusts the difficulty based on responses. Next is your secondary level, that is learning the portfolios and the self-assessment checklist. Let us take certain advantages and discuss them of the personalized and the competency based learning. The first is, it allows the student to progress at their own pace. The students are not rushed through the lessons and can take more time with the challenging topics or move ahead when ready. For example, a student who excels in the mathematics move to advanced algebra topics, while another spends more time mastering the basic arithmetics. It also focuses on mastery of the skills rather than the rote learning. Students learn deeply by focusing on understanding and applications, not just memorization for exams. For example, in a language class, students must demonstrate the actual conversational proficiency rather than score on a grammar test. It also supports the remediation and the enrichment, which is based on ability. The teachers can provide extra help to struggling students and offer the enrichment for the advanced learners. For example, using a learning app, a teacher assigns foundational reading module to one group and critical analysis activities to another. It also encourages the goal setting and the self-assessment. Students set their learning targets, reflect on their progress, and develop the metacognitive and self-regulation skills. For example, the students maintain a digital learning portfolio where they track the completeness and the competencies and reflect on the challenges faced by them. Now, let me discuss the personalized and the competency based learning. The first limitation when you talk about this technique, that it requires a continuously formative assessment. Regular assessments are necessary to track each student progress and readiness to move forward with another level. It increases immensely the teachers' and the instructors' workload. A teacher managing weekly reading benchmarks for the 40 students must provide this material, and sometimes the teachers may find it very hard to manage the multiple learning paths simultaneously. So, differentiated instructions demand the customized lesson plans, resources, tracking tools which are actually overwhelming for the faculty members. Now, in a competency based science class, managing 10 students, conducting 10 different experiments at the same time is logistically very challenging. There is a problem of difficulty to implement in the large classrooms. This personalization and the competency based learning is extremely difficult to manage in the large classrooms where there are between 50 to 60 students. It is actually there is a feedback difficulty to manage the personalization to a larger extent. For example, a single teacher may not have the capacity to monitor the progress for every student in a government school with a high enrollment. There may not be aligning with the fixed exam schedule or the board exams. The standardized exams emphasize a uniform content and the timelines, which conflicts with the flexibility and the mastery based approaches of the competency based learning. A student focusing on mastering a skill late in the term may be unprepared for the fixed date board exams covering that particular topic. Now, advanced implementation techniques are there, like mapping a specific competency to a specific per topic. There is use of diagnostic test to identify the readiness levels. And the next is provide enrichment in the activities for the fast learners and remedial classes for the slow learners. So, this personalization technique is very time consuming, demands an extra workload of the classroom, faculty, teachers, students. Entire team has to work very hard, but this is the need of today and has to be implemented using AI and other similar digital tools. I hope all these 6 techniques what we have done today for the extra engagement of the classroom of the students, they are highly recommended to attain the objectives of New Education Policy 2020. Thank you so much.